leaders from 27 countries have witnessed the signing of a ceasefire deal in Egypt. U.S., Egypt, Qatar, Turkey signed as mediators and guarantors, committing to the full implementation of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah El-Sisi said the agreement opens a new era of stability in the Middle East. El-Sisi, together with U.S. President Donald Trump, said the search for the bodies of Israeli hostages under the rubble in Gaza would be a priority this week. Meanwhile, the scaling up of humanitarian aid is underway. The UN says Israel approved for 190,000 tons of food, shelter items, medicine, and other supplies to enter the Strip, and that's 20,000 more than previously agreed. Aid workers say that they are now able to move more easily within Gaza after previously experiencing constant access restrictions imposed by Israeli authorities. A global hunger monitor in August determined that Gaza City and surrounding areas are officially suffering from famine. Well, let's get more on this. For more in-depth discussion, we have Ambassador Mutaz Ahmedan Khalil live in Cairo. Ambassador Khalil is a former permanent representative of Egypt to the United Nations in New York. Ambassador, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. Ambassador, first and foremost, what are your reflections on the deal? Do you believe the hard work is done, as U.S. President Donald Trump suggests?
Well, thank you very much for having me in CGTN for the first time. And this is an excellent question, actually, because everybody is talking about the deal, but nobody does exactly know what is the deal that has been signed. In a couple of hours ago, a statement has been released by the White House containing a certain declaration that speaks about a commitment to the Trump peace agreement and to good relations between Israel and its neighbors in general terms. Well, that is not a deal. That is a general declaration. We have two other documents, the 20-point Trump peace plan, not a deal, not an agreement, and the agreement on the ending of the Gaza war, the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement. This last one is fine, and it has been implemented. The hostage release and the exchange of prisoners and the ceasefire, it has almost been implemented. But if we talk about the Trump peace plan, it is very ambiguous. It has not been signed by any party. Everybody is, of course, welcoming the fact of stopping the war and letting humanitarian aid get through. But there are many ambiguous points, especially with regard to the obligations of Israel and its main sponsor, the United States. That is why I think there are tough negotiations ahead. There are many bumps ahead, and we should follow up very deeply what is going on to know if this plan is going to be implemented, and more important, to know what is exactly the agreement that people talk about. So, in short, the hard work has not been done. This is fake news, to use the expression that President Trump likes so much. And we have to watch out and see what the coming negotiations will lead to.
All right, very important words that you've stated there, Ambassador. You mentioned not a deal, not an agreement, many ambiguous points. But with that being said, what can we expect in the next phase of the Gaza deal and the rebuilding process?
Well, the next phase, if I heard your question well, will be negotiations about the implementation of this peace plan. I mean, what I have seen is the 20-point plan that has been published a long time, a couple of weeks ago. But here, what I expect and what we should see is that President Trump is going to put a lot of pressure on the mediators for them to exert pressure on Hamas to disarm and so on. But on the other hand, the mediators, and especially Egypt, are going to ask for clarifications and put some pressure, if they can, on the United States and Israel to clarify the many ambiguous clauses or paragraphs of the plan that contain the obligations of Israel. So now we have stopped the war, But there is talk about, in addition to disarmament, the most important point for Egypt is the complete withdrawal of the Israeli forces from Gaza, because the plan gives a triple safety net for Israel to stay in the strip of land that connects Egypt to Gaza, what they call the Philadelphia corridor. In the first phase that has been implemented, Israel has a limited withdrawal. They have now 55 to 60% of Gaza, including, of course, the Philadelphia corridor. In another paragraph, paragraph 16 specifically, there is talk about a full and complete withdrawal after negotiation to agree on the conditions. But this complete withdrawal will be save for a security perimeter that includes the Philadelphia corridor. I am sure that Egypt will not sign to anything that means a modification or an amendment to the annexes to the Camp David Accord, because the annexes to the Camp David Accord, the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel, do specify that Israel should not be on the border between Gaza and Egypt. And this is a very important point for the national security of Egypt. Other points of contention and ambiguity, of course, are the question about self-determination and statehood for the Palestinians, which are addressed in very ambiguous terms and do not give any obligation except for establishing a very vague dialogue in order to agree on peaceful coexistence. When we speak about statehood, it is just recognized and an aspiration for the Palestinian people. These are the main contentious points. Not to speak about the bureaucratic layers of the peace board, the stabilization force, the international stabilization force, and the Trump economic plan, which all three, these are not new ideas. There is an Arab plan for reconstruction. Now with the Trump peace plan, we have put above this Arab plan, the Trump economic plan. There is an Egyptian idea of the independent committee from Palestinians to govern Gaza. We have put upon them another layer of governance or supervision, the peace board. And there was an idea by the Arab summit in Bahrain in 2024 to have multinational forces, including Arab forces, but by a Security Council resolution. Now we have this stabilization force that we do not know exactly what is the mandate and if it is going to come from the Security Council or from this 20 points plan or from the ambiguous, unknown Trump peace agreement.
All right, Ambassador, that leads me very nicely to my next question. Now, while the ceasefire deal, though ambiguous, as you have pointed out, it has halted one of the world's biggest conflicts. Some believe it may not bring a lasting peace because major issues remain unresolved, which you have also pointed out. My question to you is, what can Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and the U.S. actually do to ensure their efforts are not lost?
Well, first of all, we have to know that what has been talked about so far is not a comprehensive peace for the Middle East, because nothing has happened with regard to Lebanon, where Israel bombs each other day, nor Syria, which Israel put raids as well and bombs each other day, and not about Iran. I mean, the big question mark, because the method that Israel and the United States are following is they try to isolate, then disarm, then strike. So now that the Gaza front has been almost pacified, I think we should brace ourselves for the next step on Iran. Having said that, speaking about the mediators, the Arab and Islamic mediators, Turkey, Qatar, and Egypt, I think the mediators have fulfilled their part of, if you could call it, the informal deal. We have delivered a positive answer from Hamas, and we have Egypt has provided the venue for the peace summit yesterday, and we have gone along with the media show, the Trump lap of victory lap, as they call it in the United States now. Now it is the turn of the United States and Israel to deliver their part, the full withdrawal, the pacification of the whole region, and then we can talk about the next steps ahead. But we do not have leverage on Israel. I mean, very limited leverage. Although we have the political and economic relations, maybe we can use that. But I think the onus now is on Trump. And here, let me say that China has an important role to play, because what I expect is that we can go to the United Nations in order to preserve at least the standards that we have achieved about the legitimate rights of the Palestinians. We have to be very careful not to get a resolution, whether from the General Assembly or the Security Council, that takes out what has been achieved and puts and focus the work of the international community on condemning Hamas, disarming Hamas, reforming the Palestinian Authority, which are all preconditions and that I think are not very easy to achieve for Israel to start thinking about withdrawing and behaving as a normal country in the region, not as a rogue state like they have been doing all the time.
All right.